There we go. Got meters. Didn't have the meters on the soundboard on. Checklist, I tell you what. Okay, so we're hot. Sorry for the 5 minutes of dead time. Had my music playing in the background. You didn't get to hear it. But such is live. the I started the Senior Tech live stream after appearing on the Curtis Judd show because being that I've done this stuff I've done audio for 5 decades and video for 3. I thought I had something I could add to the conversation. I still don't disagree that I have something to add. I just haven't found a time that works. So I'm just kind of doing them when I want. And, occasionally somebody does show up, and that's great. But pretty much I'm just like I'm recording. And if somebody shows up, we'll deal with it kind of mindset. A few things about today's live stream. As is always the case, unless I say otherwise, I'm using the YOLO Live Ultra. It's a 4 HDMI input scaler. Unlike the Rodecaster Video, you can I've got some 4K signals going in. It scales it, and I've got everything. I've got it plugged in fully right now. I have the overhead shot, which I need to zoom in a little bit. Focus, zoom, there we go. Sorry for the tunnel effect. So that's the overhead shot. HDMI is this iPad. Has my website on it, which is simply theseniortech.com. I really didn't plan this particularly well, I guess. The seniortech.com is great, but the Senior Tech in YouTube was taken, so you have to lose the H, and I'm just not going to buy another website for that. It's not that big a deal. But I try to list when I'm going to go online, which I'm behind. I didn't do this one because I just thought about doing it today and just didn't get around to posting it. The T is right here when I need it. The camera 4 is temporarily. See me through the maze. That's the PTZ camera I reviewed, and I just set it back on right by my TV in my office. It's not designed for an office use. It's designed for conference room or houses of worship, as they call them. I prefer to call them churches. And it's got a good zoom. I mean, I think it'll go even closer. Yeah, you can get all the way down to my stubble. I didn't shave. So, there's that view. USB 1 is my Pocket 3, so I have 5 video sources technically. I'm running 4 of the HDMIs, and the 5th one is USB-C. USB-A technically. USB-C to USB-A into the Rodecaster. I have the NDI feed, which is up here. So that's the tail error. And that's all the feeds. I don't have any splits set up for today. Because today is more of just a rant. I've been doing technology for most of my life, it seems like. I had a PC, the original PC. I had original Apple. I had in various versions of DOS and Windows and Apples throughout my entire life. I do have a Surface still. It's several years old. I haven't turned it on in probably 6 months. I just don't have any use for the Windows world right now. I'm about to redo my Macs. I have a Mac Mini that's tied to the TV, which is a TV in my office, which is right out there. And I have a cordless keyboard I can use for that. I have a Mac Air, which is my main computer for everyday use. I currently have an iMac Pro right here that I'm replacing with a Mac Mini with another Studio Display, Mac Mini Pro chip. So I've always used two computers. One's never been able to keep up with me. I have an iPad Pro back here. I have an iPad Mini up here, which is what's displaying my website. This is an iPad Mini. And it's great for displaying stuff. But the topic of conversation, I asked Tom Buck to be on my channel a few weeks ago. He graciously said yes. We had a good conversation. The link is either on my website or look through the live feeds, and it's on the. We had a few technical challenges because of how YOLO Box works. There's a lot of settings you have to do every time when you do a YOLO Box, and I always, if I don't pull out the checklist like I did tonight, I always forget something. That's something they've got to work on. But the current version, which is currently I'm using the release version 2.8.4. They just released a beta. I haven't updated. It's a very minor one, and the stuff that it corrected I don't use, so I'm not really testing that for them. But although I'm quite happy where the Ultra is today. There's a few things. They have what's called the YOLO deck, which I'm going to push in here. I have it turned off right now. It's like a Stream Deck, but it's custom to them because it's USB-C, because it can't run on the computer, because this is a computer. It's an Android computer that runs it, and that's still got some work to do. But other than that, they're about where they should be, and I'd say I've been working with them that the software for the YOLO deck to get updated to work the way I want it to work, and the way a lot of other people will like the way it will work, is, I hope, less than a couple months away. And when they get there, which is about the time their new device comes out, which means the updates will slow, as the people that currently have Pros and other of the older YOLOs will tell you has been their problem. But I'm happy with where it is right now. It's quite usable. It's quite stable. I haven't had any issues with it recently. So there's that. I have a Facebook group. I have a phone number listed that you can call. It's on the website, I think. If not, it's at the end of this video. But my rant for today is when I was talking to Tom afterwards, or before we were talking about a mic that he didn't have. Now, Tom has probably more mics than I do right now. I had a ton. I've sold them all when I sold my business. I kept a few that they didn't need and that I wanted to keep, like I'm currently using, an MKH50. So what, $1,400 mic. It's quite good for what I'm doing. They didn't need it, so they weren't interested in spending that kind of money. I have a pair of these, and I have a pair of 416s, because I still record some videos for some nonprofits. And so he asked to borrow it. I don't think he asked as much as I offered. Here, you want to borrow it? He just released that video today, and he made a comparison, and I got to thinking, because this is not in any way a slam against Tom Buck. I'm a fan of his channel. As far as a guy that does it all himself, he's one of the best. The package. There are people technically better probably, but some of the names that are famous, MKHD, what's it, MKBHD. He has millions of subscribers. He records on Reds, uses a robot. I'm not impressed with his reviews most of the time. They're slick in some ways. It's definitely not because he's black. This isn't a racist thing at all. It's just that he's got a slant to him. I mean, Apple always invites him to their events because he's big, and he's sometimes plus and minus, but he's more of an Android guy than an Apple guy. I have no use. I mean, remember Elza is running Android, but I don't have to deal with it in a sense. That's just the platform they're using. I have no use for Androids whatsoever. And that's a rant for another day. But I got to thinking, people want to be content creators. I think we got too many of them. And a lot of them are struggling. I mean, if you get to the size of MKBHD or Mr. Who's the Boss, or even Tom Buck, who's trying to do it full time, I don't know how well he's doing. He's still got a roof over his head, but I don't think he's racking in huge dollars. But I expect he's doing okay. Gerald Undone there are certain reviews that as soon as they pop out, I generally go watch. Gerald's one of them. I care what's happening in the world of mics and streaming stuff and cameras and lights. Well, Gerald Undone is the only review I really need on a camera. There's a few others that I watch from time to time, but he's the only one I need. And I can make up my mind on my own, and he's very, hey, they sent it to me or they paid for this deal, so it's not a true review. And he's honest enough about what he's doing that I can interpolate the rest. The only reason I watch any audio channels is because when I went from running live sound to thinking about getting into the recording space, different than the curriculum our lectures I did, I'd sold all that equipment, and I was going to buy some new equipment, and I was curious, about, I didn't need a huge. Well, first thing I did, I started a podcast, so I just brought a Rodecaster. Okay. Now I know how to run massive soundboards. Okay, 64 channels, all the knobs. I did that every week at multiple churches throughout this country, and then sometimes gigs as well. But the Rodecaster did everything you needed, and it was totally geared toward podcasting. It was a brilliant device. The time I got the Rodecaster, it was already pretty well developed. But then the Rodecaster 2 came out, and there were some things that they added that I thought was worthwhile. That, and the fact a young man who is a naturalized citizen from Africa, he was trying to get going, and I was consulting with a company, a foundation for their live stream, and he was trying to get going, and I said, I'll just give him mine because I can afford to do that. And I got the Rodecaster 2. And then about, 3 or 4 months later, Mackie releases theirs, and I would have preferred probably the Mackie over the Rodecaster Pro 2, just because the Mackie is a typical soundboard more than the Rode. That being said, I know how to use the Rode for everything I'm doing, but its way of doing things is kind of backwards sometimes for traditional soundboard. But I'm good at technology. I figured it out. It does everything I need, and I'm happy with it. Then I had to come up with, so I did these jobs. I have an FX3, I have an FX30, I have a A7 IV that I use for mainly photography as well. I use it on occasion for a third camera, but the FX30 and FX3 were all I needed for video. That, along with the reason I was looking at Curtis Judd, is portable sound gear, that he seemed to be one of the guys to look at in that field. And I watched some of his stuff on the Sound Devices. I ended up buying a Sound Devices MixPre 6 Mark II. I bought his course at Learn Light and Sound, and it was excellent, and it was quite reasonably priced. The one thing I like about Curtis stuff is they're not overpriced, which I can say some people's are way overpriced. I already knew how to run Final Cut enough to do what I needed. So that's how I basically got into the audio gear Curtis, and I'm an active participant in his user base. I'm very active on his live stream. And I just do it because I enjoy it. Then I discovered, when I decided to do a live stream, when my son gave me the YOLO box, I didn't buy it. But I told him what I thought I wanted. I already used multiple ATEMs, the bigger ones and the smaller ones. They're great if you're a producer, okay? If I'm sitting back with an ATEM as a producer for a show, then I love the ATEM. I love the buttons. I love how it works. Except when you have guests. It's hell when you have guests, because it's not set up for bringing in a guest. I mean, there's this huge, complicated setup I had to use through Riverside and a computer and ports out to here and all. It was a mess, but luckily we didn't have a lot of guests. But I made it work. But I wanted to have guests on a regular basis. And the YOLO Live, I press a button, it sends me an email. I bring them in. They're just another source. I click right to them. It's great. I haven't done more than one guest at a time, but it supports up to 4, I think, which would be interesting. But when I started getting live streaming, I'd seen some, the algorithm had fed me some Aaron Parecki and Photo Joseph sites. I'm active in Aaron Parecki's live stream. And Aaron's really good at being a kind of he does it all live, which I really appreciate. So there's no behind the scenes magic. You see him have the same struggles, and I like his style. That's why I copied it, to be quite honest. I do it all live here. If somebody was to ask me a question, I would just go right in and do it live and grab what I needed if I had and try to make it work. I occasionally still watch some Photo Joseph stuff on occasion. My point is, how many do you need? How many camera reviews are enough? Do you need to watch Gerald and, 5 others? Some people may just enjoy watching them, and that's totally fine. But how many do you need? We don't need as many as people trying it. Unless you got something unique to bring to the table, it's a hard, you're battling of a guy who's established. Curtis, same way. Aaron and Photo Joseph. It's like the comment I made to a friend today is, how many more wireless 2.4 gigabit systems do we need? You got the Rode and the DJI, which are the big heavyweights, and then you got 5 or 6 others, and they're everywhere. And we don't need any more. But manufacturers are still bringing them out. I mean, and Rode and DJI have brought out multiple versions. Rode just released a new one, plus a mini one, and so did DJI release a mini one. So it's ridiculous. We don't need anywhere near that many wireless systems, and we don't need gazillion YouTube deals. I'm not saying, and I'm just talking about my sector of tech. I'm not talking about cooking channels and dog grooming channels. And I mean, with the Yellow-i, there's a ton of people using these because it has a scoreboard feature for sports. It's really quite good. I get it. One of the problems is, if you're doing sports, is it doesn't have SDI, and length is an issue. So you can do, over NDI, but there's a limit to that. And then Stream, which is their new device coming out, is just as more HDMIs, which I think they missed the mark on that. But they didn't ask me, or I would have told them, and Aaron would have told them the same thing, I think, that you needed to put some SDI ports. I mean, if you released a yellow box with at least 2 SDI ports, but preferably 4 SDI ports, 4 HDMI ports, you can use all 8 of them. 1080p, but great if it scales down. That's a device would be interesting. I mean, I don't need it for me, but I would buy it for I say customers. I'm retired from that, but it seems like people don't understand when I say I'm retired. They still want me to do it, and I have a hard time saying no, so I'm still doing some stuff. What really bugs me is the Google algorithm keeps pushing me more tech stuff, and I really don't care to listen to any more reviews because I've heard all I need to hear. And trying to get stuff outside the Google algorithm has been a bigger challenge than I thought. I mean, there is gazillion stuff on YouTube. And I'd like some stuff not tech, and I mean, it's their algorithm needs some serious work. But I have no control over that either. But, it still keeps recommending these mega channels. Mr. Who's the Boss. He bought every, the 6 most expensive phones in comparison. Sorry. I've got an iPhone 16 Pro Max. I had an iPhone 14 Pro Max. And the only reason I got that, a relative needed a phone, and so I got a new one and gave them my old one. This phone is the 16. I won't be upgrading till 19 or 20 probably, because I'm not using all of its functions. I like the size. I'm 6'3" and 225 pounds. I like a big phone. But yeah, I don't see the need for a lot more sites. I'm not sure my site's needed, but I don't see anybody offering, besides like Aaron Parecki does, it for an hour and a half on a Sunday morning. We'll help you with live streaming. And he has everything. I don't. I have 3 devices. I have a ATEM Mini. I have the GoStream Duet, and I have the Yellow Box. So I don't have everything, but I have 3. I just got the Duet, so I don't know how exactly to run it. I'm still waiting on a few pieces to make it work the way I want it to work. But I have knowledge that some people don't have. I mean, again, So, and I don't mind doing it for the 21 subscribers I have. But, finding people that need my services, which is free. I mean, Aaron Parecki, I don't know what he charges. I think he charges a certain dollar amount. Tom Buck charges a certain dollar amount. I don't know about Curtis if he even does consulting. I do it for free. Just send me an email, set up a time. I'll try to work you through your problem for free because I'm retired. I've got the time and I'm pretty good at this stuff. I'm not as slick as Aaron. I'm definitely not as polished as Tom. I call him Mr. Roadcaster because he's very good at Roadcaster stuff. Understand, I own all this equipment myself. Nobody's given, well, my son's given me, but he's not. He's got a web design business. That was just a Christmas present. So I'm not owned by any manufacturer. I'm very critical of the Rodecaster video. Now, doesn't mean I don't think it's a good device. I think it is a good device. I just think it's a hugely expensive device for what it is, because if you already have a Rodecaster, you already have half the device and you're wasting that half when you buy a Rodecaster video. Yeah, you can plug your current Rodecaster in, but they need a version that doesn't have the Rodecaster, where it just has the USB port to plug your current Rodecaster in. So there are some cases where I may recommend that to somebody, but I don't know what those are right now. In most cases, I would recommend the YOLO Box Ultra because they're about the same price, in the ballpark of each other, and it gives you a whole lot more, from my perspective, if you already have a Rodecaster. Now, if you don't have anything, different ballgame. But this all came about because I was speaking at school, and these kids wanted to be content creators. And, it's like something Charles Barkley said once that I was watching. Charles Barkley, famous NBA player, part of the original, in my opinion, only really good Dream Team, and a character to boot. He goes speak to a high school. He goes, I go speak to a predominantly black high school. They all want to be pro athletes, whether it's basketball or football. They want to be pros. If I go speak to the predominantly white school, there's some that want to be athletes, but they want to be doctors and lawyers and businessmen and whatever. He goes, you know how rare it is to make it to the NBA? You know how rare it is to make it to the NFL? I mean, it's so slim. If you have that unbelievably good talent, then you have a shot. But if you're just really good, you ain't going to make it. YouTube these guys have a huge head start. So unless you got something new to bring to the game. Now, Road Central had their awards recently, and they were bragging that a bunch of and they did it on purpose, I expect. They picked a lot of people that only had less than 10,000 subscribers. Like, that's a small number. Getting 10,000 subscribers is really hard, I expect. I can't get past, I'm currently at 21. Now, all I do is live. I don't do recorded videos. Because those require a lot more work, and that's what I'm retired from work. I'm doing this for fun. I don't particularly like editing. My idea of the editing I like is my wife and me like to watch Hallmark movies, but I don't like the commercials. So I record them, take them in the Final Cut, cut all the commercials out, which takes a 2-hour time slot and drops it down to 80 minutes. And then we watch it free of commercials. It's so much better. But that's really simple editing. It's just cuts and timeline, puts it all together, and you export it and it's done. It's great. Works fine. Doing the edits the way Tom Buck does it and he's got a course on Final Cut, and he's done some videos on it. I mean, you got to buy the. See, one of the other reasons I wanted the YOLO box is I didn't want to buy any services. I had to have Riverside FM, which is for what it is, it's a great service. Don't get me wrong. If I needed it, I'd buy it again. I just don't need it. But when I was producing a show, I needed that for remote guests. Or and you also, if you want to do live, then you need another service in place of that. This box does it all. I can go live or I can record. I can add a guest, either recording or live. I can record in the box, or of course recording cameras, and do a full edit if I wanted to. That's work, and I don't want to do work. I'm retired, so my requirements are much different than the kids. They need, but let's face it. I mean, if you're a teenager doing this, unless you have some money, you got to get a decent computer to do video editing. I mean, for what I do, my computers are quite good. I mean, they're very good. My son-in-law, works professionally in the video business, in the Etsy film business, his computer is even more expensive than mine. His is getting slow, and he's going to have to buy, another. He's got a M2 Pro laptop, I think it is, and he's going to have to buy another desktop, and it's going to be, $7,000 or $8,000 worth, which it's a business, and that makes sense for a child. $6,000 computer would be a stretch unless you come from the right part of the town. So that's a concern. Live is so much greater. You just stick it up there. But live scares some people, I guess. Doesn't scare me. I'm actually thrilled to go live. I like it. Just deal with it. If there's an issue, then you can, you'll work it through, and people can see it's the challenge of doing it. So I was working on crunching some dreams. Whoever came up with the idea, follow your passion and go for it, no, that's not it. Whoever come up with that person should be flogged. I mean, jokingly. If your passion, I mean, there are so many people I know with art degrees that, if it wasn't for other sources, they'd starve to death. Okay. You got to pick something that can pay the bills. Okay. I personally doubt I'll be invited back to school, because I said, today a liberal arts education isn't worth much. It's definitely don't take out any loans for it, unless you're going for specific fields that pay. Okay, accountants, we need them. It's a necessity of life. It's a good paying job, no problem. Engineers, we need all we can get, no problem. Coders, don't really need to go to school for it, at least a 4-year degree in coding, so there's that. Laborers, I mean, we need builders, we need all the labor tech deal. My dad had a really great rule. I didn't like it when I was young, like most people, kids don't like, teenagers don't like their dads. He had a really good rule. He says, I will pay for your 4-year education, but I require you to get a 2-year degree, either before or after. And you can't pull okay, I've got my 4-year degree. Oh, I got a job, too bad. He says, I will disown you and write you out of the will. And he had enough money that I figured that I didn't want that to happen. So he, whether he meant it or not, I don't know. Back, my dad only said what he meant what he said. So all of us, my 2 brothers went to tech school first. That's all they needed, and they've made great livings doing what they're trained to do. I went to 4-year school, didn't like it, went to 2-year school, and did that for 20 years. Trouble is, I picked the printing field, and printing, thanks to the internet, was dying. I mean, web pages are much more, nobody could have known, but it's really funny. When I was deciding, there were two fields I was interested in. I was interested in fiber optics and printing. If I got into fiber optics, that would have been a really smart move, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I know people that have their fingers are all messed up because little fiber things shatter and it gets in their fingers and their eyes. And I know one who can't hardly do anything with his hands anymore because of the damage from fiber shards in his fingers. Anyway, and that's not the case anymore because they've got safety measures, but I'm that age. I would have been like him. But printing, I was good at it. I made it to the top of my fields, and then I saw it's dying. And when it's dying, I mean, I made a choice to leave it and switch over to the personal technology field, because I was in Nashville at the time, and I knew VIPs that were brilliant at their crafts, but they needed somebody to handle other stuff that was, technically challenging to them, and I made a good business of it and did well. And the fact that I could also run a soundboard if they needed it, that was a plus as well. In emergency, I could be called on to sit at the soundboard and know what I'm doing. And so it worked out. But I was pretty negative against four-year schools if you don't know what you want to be. The worst thing there is in the world is go to college, 4-year college, even 2 years college, if you don't know what you want to be. So, I mean, I actually love one thing. There are some things I like about the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the United Kingdom's going away. They've been invaded by way too many migrants, and they haven't assimilated. But that's a political story that we're not going to get into here. But one thing I liked about the typical UK was they had a gap year, they called it, where you'd finish high school and you take a year off to see the world, go backpacking in Europe, do the things that a 20-year-old should and could do that us old guys shouldn't and do. And now you probably can't do anymore because of the higher crimes and things. That places aren't as safe as they used to be. But I thought that was if you don't know what you're going to major in, don't go to a 4-year school. You're just throwing money away. Unless your parents have that much money to throw away. But don't take out loans. Because I, as a taxpayer, don't want to pay for them. I hope that program's all in. So only schools should loan money out. The school you're going to should loan you the money. If their degree isn't worth that much money, that's their problem. Shouldn't be your problem or the taxpayer problem. Again, I'll try to get off those subjects. But content creator, don't get me wrong. I mean, Aaron Parecki still does it as a hobby. I mean, it's a business. He's very business savvy, but that's not his full-time job. Curtis Judd, that's his night and weekend job, but that's not his full-time job. And Gerald Undone, that's his full-time job, but he gets paid big bucks to when he's sponsored events because he's built up a reputation of somebody can be trusted. Because I mean, that's valuable. So this was kind of ran against content creators. There are some courses you need, and you can probably get those on YouTube too, to be quite honest. You need to understand. The hard thing is for a solo creator is very few people. There's very few people who can do it all themselves. Again, as I said, I'm a Tom Buck fan because he can do it all himself. He's extremely talented. One, he's got a master's degree in education, so he was a teacher. He was teacher of the year. But he's got one of his deals how he makes his thumbnails. He's got great thumbnails. He spends an hour on a thumbnail. He enjoys it. I would not enjoy it. I mean, I don't have that skill set either. I've seen him do it, but seeing a person do it, I mean, I was involved with the NASCAR world. I saw Jeff Gordon go around Daytona at 200 miles an hour. I actually was able to get in a car and go around Daytona, and about 175. That was even too fast for me. But that was what I was working for. A guy says, if you don't get to 175, you're gonna embarrass me. So I got to 175. I didn't wreck it, and I brought it back in. That being said, it's a very small percentage of people that can race at that level. Okay. Formula One, same thing. I mean, you want to be a race car driver, great. Chances of being a Formula One driver, how many teams are there? 14, 16? You're talking about a grueling sport. Their reflex time is insane. Their weight training. The amount of pressure you have to be able to apply to the brake is crazy. They don't have power brakes in Formula One cars. You've got to apply this huge amount of force in heat to apply the brake. It's a skill set that's learned over years and practice and workout. And again, I don't want to shoot somebody's dream, but it's a very small number of people. It's not like they go away every year. I mean, Lewis Hamilton started, won all these championships. He's still going. 10, 12, how many years he's been going? So the spots that open up are so few. It's not even funny. I mean, there are some YouTubers that have quit because you got to come up with there's all these factors. You got to, if you're doing a Tom Buck style YouTube channel, you've got to figure out what you're going to talk about. Then you got to figure out how you're going to shoot it. Then you got to edit it. Then you got to make it work. Got to do the film. He's got a routine, which is, it works great for him. And I get it. It will work probably for most people. He's got a schedule. He does so and so and so and so days. But it's hard work, and it's a lot of work, and you got to know how to do everything that he has to do. And it's not just look good in front of a camera. It's most of Gerald's are all scripted. He reads them. He has to write that script and then read the teleprompter. I have no teleprompter, just for the record. I did buy one because that's what everybody else had. I fell into that deal of buying what they're selling. Not anymore. I quit that a while back. My deal is I'm not buying something unless I see a need for it. I bought this camera because there's a missionary need for it. I'm not going to keep it. It's not going to be just sitting in my closet. It's to show this ministry what it can do. And then I'm donating that one. They're going to buy 2 more, and I'm going to Africa with them to set it up at a church. And so it's got a purpose. The only thing I bought for no good reason is this. The NDI camera. The Telera camera, it's not worth what I paid for. To me, it's not worth what I paid for it. Sorry. But it's so small. It does a lot. It does more than just stream. It can do its own thing. But I shouldn't have spent the money. But at least I had the money. I didn't borrow money to do it. But But no, I mean, have that camera, had the light, had the Pocket 3, had the phone, had the iPads. So I'm just using stuff I already had. I mean, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. Anybody knows what they're doing. This is the mic. The MKH50 is the mic to use. I mean, it's $1,300, I think. You know, maybe on a Black Friday sale, it was $1,200 or $1,100. That's still a lot of money. What's funny is people will buy this mic and then buy an Amazon cable to connect it. Don't get me started on Amazon cables. Some Amazon name products are excellent. Okay, I went through 1, 2, 3 shredders that I bought at Staples or Home, one of these office places. They were all pathetic. I ordered the Amazon one. That thing's been going for 7 years. Knock on wood. So certain Amazon products are excellent. Don't get me wrong, but their cables is not one of them. Anyway, so my rant is we don't need this many. Don't let your kids think they're going to make it as a YouTube sensation. The next Mr. Beast. Not that I would want to be a Mr. Beast. I don't watch Mr. Beast videos. I don't know enough to say one way or another. I know he's done some good charity work, and I know there's some scandal involved, and I don't really know what's going on. But I have no desire to be Mr. Beast, and I don't think anybody should push a person to do stupid stuff like that. But there's a guy abroad in Japan. Chris is his name. He released a video talking about a bad experience with a YouTuber, and he's again a successful YouTuber. He's got over 1 million shares. Lives in Japan. He's a British guy. Uses a little bit of foul language, but other than that, he at least has some ethics about him. And he put out a little video today that was excellent. Anyway, YouTube X is where I spend most of my time these days. So don't be wrong. I think there's a ton of market out there. I would like a better news source than I found. I haven't found a perfect news source, but that requires a little bit more resources and requires, again, more work than I want to put into it. There's still plenty of growth in the YouTube market. I mean, I don't know how these networks, the advertisers haven't woken up yet, but these people that are spending these millions of dollars keeping these TV shows on the air that aren't watched by 500,000 people is just a joke. I mean, there's a ton of YouTube channels that get way more than 500,000 views for a fraction of the cost. I mean, I don't invest in them. I sure wouldn't. There's no way I'd have anything to do with a traditional network. I mean, ABC, NBC, CBS. I mean, look at NBC. I mean, don't get me started. Anyway, that was the rant for today. That's what I wanted to talk about was content creators. I don't think we need too many more. I'm not sure I'm needed. I've got the equipment. I'm going to keep doing it because it doesn't cost me anything. I mean, I'm paying for internet one way or another, right? I'm really concerned with these huge number of kids that want to be content creators. That scared the tar out of me, to be quite honest. One of my grandkids is one of those students, and that one I do have a little sway with. I'll do what I can to steer him in another direction. Do it as a hobby, great. And if it works out, more power to you. There's a lot of work being your own boss. As one that's done it. Find yourself a lawyer and find yourself an accounting firm, because otherwise you're going to get yourself in trouble. Guaranteed. You've got to have an accounting firm and at least have a conversation with a lawyer. They'll want to put you on retainer and bill you on a regular basis. Avoid that as you can, but at least find one that if you need them, I mean, you're going to pay out the wazoo for it. But anyway, that's the rant. I didn't load up the video yet, so let me do that real quick. I forgot to load up the exit video, but luckily I know where it is. Outro. Done. And make sure it's on. Make the same mistake I did for video one. That went on. Yeah, see, there you go. If you don't turn it on, it doesn't. Again, there are two things they got to fix in the YOLO box. That'll probably be, well, now I'm doing it may be my next video. I got 1 or 2 videos left this year. December 21st will be an important day, and I will deal with that one. On December 21st, there will be a live stream. But there may be another one. But hope you and yours have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the new year after that. So if I press the right button.